Okay, well, we've got just a few people just still joining, but I think we'll make a start because we've got a lot of content to cover today. So, good morning to everyone, everyone on the Zoom call, but also everyone on the YouTube live stream as well. It's a pleasure to have you with us today, and you're very welcome to stay for all or part of the day, dip in, dip out, whatever you fancy, really. And obviously, we're having to do this online this year. We'd love to have been with you in person, but obviously that's not possible. But we look forward, hopefully, in the near future, to be able to see you in person again soon. So hopefully you will have seen a copy of the agenda for today. I think it's fairly self-explanatory. After me, there's Janet will be talking first, and then there's some presentations from some of our customers. And then at various points during the day, there will be opportunities for you to ask questions as well. So hopefully that will work for you. So just some sort of general logistics for the day. All of the sessions today, we are going to be recording on the YouTube live stream. So if you do have to drop out at any time, then there will be an opportunity for you to go back and view those at a later date, and we'll send through after the event a link. Sorry, I think you just lost me there for a second. Yeah, there will also be a mixture of both live and pre-recorded sessions. So you will notice as we go through the day, some of the sessions are live. Some we've pre-recorded. That's really in the interest of you know, keeping to the timetable. So if you do ask questions and nobody responds to them, that's probably because it's a pre-recorded session. But as I said earlier, there will be opportunities to ask questions throughout the day anyway. So you can ask those questions in person if you want to at the appropriate moments. You can use the chat in Zoom, or you can also use the chat in the YouTube live stream. Any problems during the day, if you drop out the session, can't get back in again, then there's two links here to both the Zoom meeting and to the live stream. You can just follow those links and you should be able to get back in again. Any problems in the Zoom session itself, then feel free to send a individual chat to Andrew, and he can try and help you. He'll try and help you out if you can, or just use our general info at ptfseurope.com email address as well. Andrew is also going to be running a couple of polls at the end of the morning, the afternoon session. So if you've got time to do those, that would be great as well. There is a hashtag for today if you want to, if you like doing Twitter and stuff. It's PTFSECD20. Feel free to use that. So I think that's the logistics. So really, just a sort of introduction from me, really, to sort of set up the day. Since we last met, we've had one new member of staff who I think many of you have possibly already spoken to, Andrew Ald, who's our head of marketing business administration. So Andrew's been involved in all sorts of parts of the business. He's been very much involved in putting together the event today and a lot of other online events that you've seen over the past few months. And some of you will have seen him on the sales side as well. So we're delighted to have Andrew with us. He brings a huge amount of experience to us. I'm sure if you haven't already spoken to him, you will be in the coming. I tried to have a think back as we usually do at the customer day over what happened last year. When I was doing it, it absolutely felt like a lifetime ago. But we did have the KohaCon 2019 last year in Dublin, which we jointly hosted with Interleaf in the Koha distributor in Ireland, and that was a huge success. Had a huge number of people from all parts of the world. So Martin, a bit later on, is going to talk about the 2020 KohaCon. So we're looking forward to that coming up very shortly. Martin also went to Marseille last year to the BibLibre Koha Hackfest, and that was a very productive event and a very enjoyable event. I think Martin got a lot out of that. And we saw quite a few of you as well at the King's Fund event in central London last December. And that was a really nice sort of Christmassy type event where we celebrated with the King's Fund's 10 years of them running Koha. We've also once again renewed, well, both last year and again this year actually, our ISO 27 accreditation and Cyber Essentials accreditation. So that's been good. We continue to sort of improve on that. And Janet's going to be talking a little bit more presently about some of the things we've been doing with our hosting facility as well. Again, since we last saw you, we've continued to sort of pick up a large number of new customers, both in 2019 and 2020, and we're very grateful to well, all of you who've joined us and come on board and have started using Koha. It's a pleasure to have you with us. So I think the names sort of speak for themselves, really. Just to mention, the Houses of Erectus are going to be doing a presentation presently about their implementation. I think you'll find that very interesting. We also, at the end of last year, worked with the Surrey Performing Arts Library. Some of you may have read in the library press that they were sort of scheduled to be closed down and were taken off the Surrey Libraries, public libraries system. It was quite a big news story. So an independent sort of trust was set up to reform it as a charity, and we're doing some pro bono work helping them with keeping the library system running on Koha. So pleased to be working with them on that. This year we're hugely grateful to Cumbria Public Library, British Museum, Leeds College of Music, the Imam of Order St John's, Society of Antiquaries, Institute of Materials, Minerals Mining, the Royal Academy of Music, all who have implemented their projects during the lockdown, and they've been absolutely fantastic to work with, and their determination to get the projects done has been fantastic. Royal Academy of Music went live last week, and we've got Cumbria Public Libraries going live next week, and we continue to work with Plymouth Marjon University and Ravensbourne University, as well as the College of Optometrists, who have sort of just begun on that road of their projects, and obviously they'll be doing a lot of that during lockdown as well. So thank you for your patience and for working us through this sort of difficult time. We've continued to do a lot of Koha community work. You probably know that Martin did 2 stints as release manager for versions 1911 and 2005, and he'll be talking again about that this afternoon. So again, hopefully you'll find that interesting. Continue to have a lot of sponsored development, which has just generally helped to make Koha better. So again, we're grateful for all of you who've contributed in that way. And in terms of what we've done, we've continued to assist with the British English translation of Koha, the documentation, continue to offer various bits of sponsorship, in particular for Jonathan Druout, who's the full-time Koha community developer, as well as hosting various bits of hardware for the Koha community as well. One big thing that you may have seen that in sort of press releases from us, both us and from EBSCO, is that we've been working with EBSCO to look at implementing and supporting the Folio library services platform as well. So that's been very interesting, particularly in the context of I guess the climate of the last 10 years and potentially the climate of the next 10 years. So thinking about sort of the last 10 years from when we started back in 2007, there's been a huge sort of shift towards open source as being a viable alternative to proprietary systems. Obviously a huge big community out there, of which we're a small part of that. Huge number of people adopting Koha. And in a way that's been a very disruptive technology in the market, obviously bringing a fully web-based product into the market that's open source. And often disruptive technology is often good for markets, to stimulate markets. So we think it's been good over the last 10 years for the library and information market. So the next 10 years really is quite interesting as well, because over the last few years, Folio has emerged as another viable option for libraries. It's a library services platform, again, very similar to the last 10 years. And with Koha, there's a growing list of people working with Folio. It does give more choice into what is a very consolidated marketplace. And hopefully it's going to address some of the emerging trends that are out there in the marketplace, using sort of contemporary and next generation technology. So we're still very committed to Koha. We're very excited to be working with Koha still. And as you can see from the customer list, we have a large number of, a lot of large implementations of Koha over the last 2 years. But we're excited to be working with Folio, hopefully over the next 10 years. And you'll probably have noticed some of the other Koha support vendors across the world have also been doing a similar sort of thing. So Folio really, it covers a lot of the bases that we already cover in terms of working with business intelligent electronic resources management, library management systems, but it really covers it in one sort of library services platform in one place. So that's really what Folio is about. And obviously we'll be bringing our expertise in the same way that we do with Koha to all the sort of areas that you would expect: installing, looking after the software, doing training, ongoing support, and so on. So just really to wrap up before I hand over to Janet, we're very excited to be working with both Folio and Koha, and we are still very committed to the success of Koha, and we're very involved, as you know, in the Koha community still. And I guess one thing that hasn't really changed is that we do sort of believe in an ethical approach to not only the software we work with, but the way we sort of go about our business day to day. And we do believe that open source software does open opportunities for positive outcomes. And again, we've seen that with projects like the Surrey Performing Arts Library, the work we've done in Pakistan, and so on. So we're very committed to carry on working with open source.
So yeah, I'm going to talk about what's new. I almost thought that while I was thinking about this session that given after the year we've all had, for some companies I could almost have thought to call it "What on Earth's the same?" So I think for all of us it's been quite a year, personally and professionally. So as a virtual company, I mean, you all know that we've been a virtual company since inception in 2007. So you think we should be prepared for the issues of lockdown and so on. We've got systems in place for remote working. We're used to working from home and having our internal meetings at home from our home spots and so on. So we should be prepared. But as with everybody, there's been huge changes for all of us, and we've certainly found that. In, of course, no face-to-face, physical face-to-face meetings with our customers and other staff. So we've been handling projects remotely, handling training entirely remotely. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in due course. Sales, the team have had to carry out demos and so on, all remotely. Customer relationship meetings have been carried out using remote platforms and so on. So as with everybody, we've had to be juggling our normal life, our family commitments, homeschooling and so on. So everybody has had a lot of changes this year. I think maybe at the beginning of lockdown back in March, we possibly thought it was going to be a quiet spell, or perhaps not, as the following slides might indicate. I think things don't always pan out quite the way you imagine, and in place of some in place of some things that don't happen, we carry out things that maybe we weren't anticipating. So I'm going to sort of go into some of these in a bit more detail. So we've all been living in our new virtual reality. I'm sure the our experiences mirror many of your own. So we've had sites, as Jonathan pointed out before, going live in and around lockdown. You've seen the list of customers that Jonathan showed earlier who've gone new with Koha projects this year. And I'd just like to sort of say thanks to the flexibility and good humour and commitment and the real determination that our new people, our new sites and existing sites, of course, have shown as they're juggling home life, home working, the experience of managing work over VPNs, home internet, invading cats, that sort of thing. We've certainly missed meeting new faces and catching up with others. So we've had to sort of put in place a great deal of other elements to take into account not being able to go out on site. So in terms of implementations and feedback, we've been looking at doing quite a lot of revamping of documentation. So because we can't be on site talking new customers through implementation, we've introduced hopefully more user-friendly forms to allow people to log issues in terms of getting feedback to us. So we've been working on some of our internal processes with regard to implementations and feedback. The whole side of training, of course, one of the things we usually mention at a project meeting is, in terms of training, do bring along live props from the library, go and grab some books, and we'll use them for circulation, and we'll use them for cataloguing and so on. So we haven't had that luxury, and we've had to rethink a little bit on the ways that we do training. Certainly, for the most part, you might have 6 half-day sessions. They perhaps take place over an intensive 3 days. 3 days face-to-face is quite different from 3 days with your headset on, looking at training slides and looking at scenarios. So we've tried to be flexible in our approach to training, splitting up sessions, spacing them out a little bit more. All of the training sessions we've been for the most part, recording at customers' requests, so that people can go back in and dip in and review certain elements of training sessions. We've been provided online exercises so that to really replace Fiona, Lucy or I walking around a room sort of helping to guide as you're trying things out on the new system. So we've been making changes in the on the training side of things as we've been rolling out projects, and I can see that continuing for some time to come. And in terms of the platforms that we've been using, a year or so ago, we were using GoToMeeting. Recently, we've been using Zoom by preference. But we're pretty flexible in terms of the video conferencing platforms that we can use. So we've rolled out a Microsoft Teams instance, so we can use Teams for those of you who can't use Zoom for whatever reason. Alternatively, we can use your teams, so our teams, your teams, we can use Skype and what have you. So we've tried to sort of make sure that we can accommodate the requirements of each organisation. And then, of course, there is meeting etiquette. I mentioned earlier about invading cats and pets. I think with regard to cameras on, we've all got our cameras on this morning, although, and also we've got our nice backdrops now that we can use to present our a more business-like approach, which I think is really good. Not all of us can use those that type of infrastructure, but it's quite good. And then we're increasingly becoming happier with having the camera on. I think it depends. It depends. We're all getting more used to having the camera on so that we can actually see you all. So that's certainly been a bit of a change for us. So speaking of cameras, also certainly over the last year, but perhaps ramping up since lockdown, we've been working on our online presence. We've been increasing our online content as a company. And we've, as you hopefully will have seen, been carrying out live webinars, many of which have been related to specific functional topics, or they could be related, some of them have been relating to particular areas of interest. So we've had Metabase webinars talking about the Metabase product and talking people through that. We ran a session called Festival, which had a focus towards further education. So that went really well earlier in the year. And then sort of on the back of that, we've also been looking at ways that issues that have come in through the support desk, and thinking about sessions and running sessions that related to topics that we have seen on the support desk of being of particular interest. So we ran a session earlier in the year on reopening libraries following lockdown. We also, on the back of that, had several queries about specific sessions, for example, we ran one on reporting and notices, and it's something that we want to maintain. It's a good way, certainly while a lot of us are carrying out remote working, it's a good way of meeting with you as our customers and sharing ideas. So that's one of the areas that we've been extending this year. We've also launched a slot called What's on Our Mind, or WOM as we call it in the company, and that comes out every 2 weeks. And it's a regular fixture for us now. It's the background of it is really for anyone in the company to sort of run with a short topic, generally a video, but it could be just a fact, for example, just something that's on our mind. And for the most part, it's been generally functionally based. We've covered particular features within Koha, but also Metabase and so on. So look out for that. We encourage at the beginning of a project customers to sign up to our customer forum and get on our mailing list. We also publicize events on Twitter, and we have a YouTube channel. So if you find that you haven't been getting notifications, do get in touch and we'll make sure that you're signed up to the right channels for that. Right. So I mentioned support before, because some of the sessions that we've been running were on the back of queries that came in through the support desk. So one of the things I generally show is a sort of a comparison of how tickets have been coming in and some of the numbers. As I mentioned again at the beginning of the session, at the beginning of the year, I think maybe we thought it was going to be a bit quieter. Now these are the stats from 2019. As you can see, that we've got peaks and troughs. It was busy in January because we just launched our new RT system. So we run our support desk on the RT system, which some of our customers also use in-house too. We've got a sort of a peak here where customers were getting new passwords in the system. There's a sort of peak in the summer months following upgrades, following academic term start and so on. So we've got a level of figures here, but let's compare that with 2019 because it's quite interesting. This is up until September, so certainly we can see a drop in the fingers here. It's a fewer number, but it is only until September, in fact, the middle of last week. So there will be some differences by the end of the year, and certainly we can see that the figures are down in some ways, but when you look a bit in a bit more detail, it tells a different story. So we can see in March, we've got 186 recorded new tickets here, whereas in the 2019 figures, we were around 160, I think. So we had a real spike in March as libraries were shutting down. We were having to do queries that came outside the norm. So things like extending due dates, suspending cron jobs, thinking about ways to manage inquiries coming in and home working. During April to June, now this is noticeably lower in those few months in the initial lockdown, but certainly a bump right up here in July as libraries started reopening. And I think overall on the support desk, and my colleagues will probably agree that we've had different types of interesting queries about catalogue searches, promotion of electronic resources, different tack of often queries that have been complex with no precedent and so have taken time to resolve. So whilst perhaps overall at certain points we've had lower figures, we've certainly had to think on our feet with many of the issues that we've been dealing with, click and collect, quarantining, track and trace, all the things that we can use Koha for to measure or to track and so on. So whilst figures may have been initially looking slightly lower, certainly the level of query and the type of query has been challenging and of great interest, and we're still to see how the end of the year will pan out. So in addition, continuing with obviously support desk, business as usual, but also upgrades has been business as usual for us. We've been continuing with 1911 upgrades this year, and it was very feature rich. So there were some really good things that came in, different views in cataloguing, changes to accounting, some great features in batch modification that relate to batch modification, extraction of keys from reporting that feeds into batch modification tools. The patron emailer in custom notices has been really useful and shows is a great step within Koha, the ability to be able to generate notices from report data, custom notices from report data. So that's been a real benefit for people upgrading. The Manner knowledge base that gives you the ability to share data from reports or also from serial patterns. It's early days for Manner, but it's certainly going to be is a really good feature. The claims return status and so on. As you know, we release a potted summary of changes with each upgrade and focusing on particular areas, and we'll be doing that again as we're looking forward to the 2011 release that I'm sure Martin might touch on a bit later, but so looking forward to the 2011 release that we'll be rolling out to at the beginning of towards in next year. So we'll be preparing our documentation for that soon. Yeah, upgrades. And then so finally, what I did want to mention was, and Jonathan alluded to this earlier, was some changes to our data centers for hosting. So our the hosting company that we've used for some time, Biomark, was acquired into the Iomark group, and that's been very beneficial for us because it's allowed us to leverage some sort of technologies that Iomark use. It gives us more flexibility there, and in addition it gives us more data center locations, so that we found as a benefit. But alongside that, we have now got provision with Amazon Web Services as an alternative platform. Some of you may have experience of Amazon Web Services as an approved supplier within your organizations, so that might make that a preference. Alternatively, on the converse side, there may be other reasons why you don't wish to use Amazon Web Services. But for us, what that gives us is options. And so on a case-by-case basis, we can work with you to work out the best and most appropriate location for your data. And we've found that really beneficial this year. On the practical side, again, it gives us additional resilience for your data because we have more data center locations and different platforms. We have a resilience in terms of recovery in the event of some major outage, and it would have to be some major outage. And also it gives us the opportunity to split production and replication systems across companies. So both of those elements really gives us more strength in that area and more security for your data. So there basically has been a lot of stuff going on. We've offset some of the some things that have changed. For example, no remote working and no face-to-face meetings, with introducing more online data. We have introduced changes to practice that will also strengthen the way that we roll out projects, for example, to name just a few. What does 2021 hold? We'll have to wait and see, but I'm sure we will have more things to discuss next year and see. So thanks very much for listening.